Hello, this is Teen Title Talk with Erin.
And Courtney,
This is the podcast.
where two librarians discuss two YA books every 2 weeks.
Today we'll be talking about My Last Summer with Cass by Mark Crilly.
And the Grisha Trilogy by Lee Bardugo.
Before we do that, we do need to take a quick COVID pulse check on libraries. See what our actual services are. We've been chronicling this the whole time. So where are you guys at in Stratham?
So in Stratham, we are now kind of like you guys are in Derry, where we're just like open to the public, but some different hours than we would normally be. And that's been going really well, actually. I'm really happy that we're able to offer that service. And now I feel a lot more confident now that I'm fully vaccinated and a lot of our staff are. So that feels really good. And like today felt like so normal in a way.
Yeah.
It was like a couple of there was a little like a kindergartner came in and his grandma was helping him look for some books, and so they were looking for some recommendations on like books that might have some sight words in them. And then and he was like super jazzed about Star Wars stuff, so like we were like talking about that. And then another family came in and they had a 12-year-old, and he's sort of like in that in-between stage, and he was looking for his next read after Ranger's Apprentice series, which he really loved.
It's just like a normal day at the library, and it feels
I was like with them, like I wasn't like on top of them or anything, but like we were actually talking in the same space, and it was like, oh, let's look at these books together, like, and I could hand them physical books and be like, what do you think about this one? What do you think about this one? Did you already read all of these?
Right.
And it just felt so like good and normal.
Yeah, that's good.
That was so nice. And also it showed me how rusty I am at like the reference interview.
I gotcha.
You'll jump.
It won't be long until you're back. It won't be long till you're back in the saddle.
Like the mom was like, so we finished all the Ranger's Apprentice. I mean, do you have any good recommendations? Are you the right person to ask?
You're like, no, nope.
Well, I do run a YA podcast, but no, I have zero idea what your child is like.
That's always a hard one on the spot, though. So you kind of got to go look.
He's like, I read all the Harry Potters. I've read all these things. I've read all these things, and I've read this. And the latest one is the Ranger's Apprentice. I was like, okay. Right. So I went down my little list of like, well, have you read all like the Septimus Heap thing?
Sure.
Read all the whatever. I recommended Peter and the Starcatchers, which is probably like a stretch, but I don't know what he ended up with now that I think of it. But then I actually recommended Shadow and Bone, which he was not into.
Oh, really? That's surprising. I mean, I've obviously had like several people coming in specifically looking for that, obviously, because of the Netflix. But are you guys planning anything for summer? Do you have that going?
Oh boy, I am so excited for summer. Like, oh man, I was just organizing all my stuff today.
Okay, good.
So yeah, we've got like regular summer reading coming your way.
Yes.
Nothing fancy. Like everyone hated our online portal thing last year and nobody used it. We had like 11 kids.
Okay.
So I was like, this year we're just going like old school, like paper stickers. You fill in when you read the hours.
I love it.
Spin a wheel to get some prizes. And we're going to do all outdoor, like every week we have an outdoor activity planned, and it's going to be really fun.
That sounds really cool.
Yeah. What about you? You have your summer is going to look different.
My summer will look different, but I've still got my eye on what Yahira is doing for summer. So we definitely have Tim coming in to do film. He's come in a couple of years in a row. Sometimes he'll come in and do stop motion animation. Sometimes he'll do, year before last he did Super 8. And this year he's going to do film, but it's like a VHS. So they always use like the old school stuff, and it's limited and it'll be outside. So it's going to be a fun program. Yahira has a bunch of different great crafts going. I'm going to do Teen Art and Writers Club still. We're working on a magazine, so that's going to continue throughout the summer as well. And most stuff will be happening in person outside, and we just got a new patio put in. out the
Saw
back
pictures
door.
of that gorgeous patio.
It
Looks
is so
awesome.
nice. And I know Eric just ordered patio furniture. And they also just transformed the window back into a door so you could just walk out onto the patio from the children's room.
Oh my gosh.
And
I
then
can't
there's going to be a little
believe.
fence around it. So it's going to be nice. It's going to be like stuff can happen out there, programs can happen out there and over Zoom in some cases.
Yeah,
So we'll have a little mix of both. And I think it's just going to be a fun summer.
I know. Isn't that exciting? It's like feels hopeful.
It
Like, you know
does.
what? This
Yeah.
is
And
gonna
most of our, I
have
think
fun.
almost all of our staff is also vaccinated at this point. So I actually am not sure who it, like there can't be that many that aren't. Because
Mhm.
we I was like, let's go get J&J when I saw it open up at the Rockingham Mall. So like a bunch of people changed their schedule to go and get J&J, and like 2 days later they told us that
Oh,
J&J had been paused, but it was fine. Nobody was
yeah.
affected in any way. So but that was just funny. So we all had half of us had gotten the J&J.
Oh my gosh. But like, yeah, no,
Oh,
I'm
yeah,
glad.
it's no big deal. I was not worried at the time at all either because I figured it was very rare what was
It's
happening.
only like 6 people out of like millions of people.
It's like I'm not gonna worry about this. I'm choosing not to until my leg starts to throb or something.
Good plan.
So awesome. I think this sounds great. Let's talk about books. You read this ultra popular, not super new at this point, but new to Netflix.
Oh, yes.
And full disclosure, I have not read it.
Okay,
So excited.
so yes, the Grisha trilogy, also called Shadow and Bone trilogy,
Yes.
is starts with Shadow and Bone,
Okay.
and then it goes on to Siege and Storm, and then Ruin and Rising. And I read Shadow and Bone, Siege and Storm, and I'm about a quarter of the way through Ruin and
Oh my
Rising.
God. Okay, you got so many done. I mean, we had a stretch
Well,
there.
we had a little bit of a stretch, but also like I wanted to read them. Like they were kind of exciting. I
Oh, fun.
enjoyed going on to the next one.
So
So
what was it about? Because I know I should know. I'm so bad.
no, it's
I
right.
often hand it to teens if they love fantasy.
And and it's a great choice for that.
Okay.
So um they're largely told in the first person through the eyes of our main character, Alina Starkov. If it sounds kind of Russian, it's because the whole world is
Mhm.
sort of like based on Russia
Hmm. Mhm.
and then sort of the surrounding areas.
Okay.
So um she's kind of this like malnourished weakling orphan when you first meet her, who's in the cartography division of the army. And she's got this best friend named Mal. They're in the army together. It feels like almost everyone kind of winds up in the army. And Mal is the opposite of Alina. He's like strong and athletic, and everybody loves him. He's outgoing. And he's also this excellent tracker, they call
Mhm.
him, where he's really good at like finding things. So that means like people, the enemy,
Okay.
animals, like he's just really good at that.
Okay.
So um I had a little bit of a hard time getting into like what her mind frame is or something, because she's not timid per se,
Mhm.
and she is best friends with Mal, and they do like lots of sarcastic digs and they're kind of funny together.
Okay.
But because she's set up to be this sort of like weak, physically weak person, or like always sick or something,
Yeah.
you're not sure how other people are viewing her, especially
Okay.
because it is told from the first person, so you're only getting her
Oh, gotcha.
perspective, which is like she perceives that everyone thinks she's like weak and lame.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
So
Interesting.
she seems kind of dull, I guess, in comparison to Mal,
Okay.
until her power is revealed within
Oh,
the
okay.
first third of the book.
Gotcha.
And so I can say what her power is because now it's a show and everyone's seen it, and
Yeah.
also it happens right away.
Uh-huh.
And that is that she has light. She can summon light,
Okay.
and it comes out of her whole body. and she can basically glow.
Okay,
And
cool.
so the reason this is important is because the major antagonist in the book is called the Darkling, and he has created this gigantic dark rift in their world called the Fold, which is like
Okay.
absolute darkness. There is no light in it, and there's all these monsters that live inside it. And so
Okay.
to
Gotcha.
get supplies, food, whatever, you have to cross the Fold, and it's extremely dangerous, and it's like ruining everyone's life, and it has killed many people. And so the fact that she becomes light, which is the opposite of all of that stuff, is very, very important. And
Oh, okay.
so really it's her journey of like understanding her power, her place in the world, and like also coming to terms with the idea that power can corrupt you.
Interesting.
Yes.
So you've read multiple of these at this point. What did you like about them?
What I like about them is I actually think they're really fast paced and fun. I think there's some little like elements of romance every now and then that is kind of like fun and satisfying. And sometimes it's unexpected.
Gotcha.
And there's some fun little twists that she throws in, some characters that you're like, oh, that's really that person? I didn't know. Or like, you know, like she's got these, she'll mention things early on and you're not really thinking about it. And then that character will come back and be important. So I like that stuff. It's a little twisty, which was fun.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it takes a lot of skill, I think, to weave all that, frankly. All right. Any dislikes?
So, as I mentioned before, I felt like I wasn't really sure what to do with Alina because, and maybe this just makes her more realistic, is that, I mean, because she wasn't a flat character, it was like hard to get a handle on like what she's feeling and why she's doing certain things.
Okay.
And like, interestingly, in the movie, like in the TV show, she's not characterized the way I imagined her at all. Like I imagined her like this complete skinny, malnourished person, because there has to be this like surprise, you never would have known that I was the sun summoner because I'm just this like meek little person, and that's why it's exciting and important.
Right.
In the show, they don't do that. She just looks the same.
Okay,
and
gotcha.
She looks like healthy and robust the whole time.
Oh, okay.
And so anyway, but that's that. But the reason it's called the Grisha series is because there's like this whole like caste system of like people who are born with these magical capabilities and people who are not. And so the Grisha are the people who are born with these capabilities. They're set apart in society. They're plucked out of their families when they're children. They're brought to this like special school where they learn how to hone their abilities. And she did not get that. She is a Grisha, but she didn't know it. And the reason she's like so weak and whatever is because she hasn't been using her power. Using your power makes you healthy.
Okay, gotcha.
And so I just felt like some of that was like, I don't know, a little clunky sometimes.
Okay. Obviously this is I would say it's special just in the fact that it's Leigh Bardugo. She's made this sort of huge platform based on this trilogy, and it's on Netflix. But in your opinion, would you say it's special? Is there anything special about it?
Well, I think, I haven't seen Game of Thrones. Like I have not seen that.
Yeah.
But I think the same reason people like Game of Thrones is why they would enjoy this series, which is, I haven't read it either, which is the world building. Like I think it lends itself so well to like exploring many facets of this same world that, there can be lots of different characters and you want to know about all these different characters. And so I haven't read Six of Crows, but that's also woven into the TV show at the same time. So like the TV show has these characters that I've never heard of because I haven't read that series.
Right.
But it is involved in the same world. And so I think that's what's kind of cool about it, is that because it really feels like a true place, it has all these different things going on politically and socially, and
Okay.
you have this social hierarchy, but you also have just like there's an ocean with pirates and ships, and then there's like land with like an army, and there's people who want to invade, and then
Okay,
there's this
gotcha. So it's
magical thing called the
massive.
fold.
Yeah,
So
it's massive.
it's a huge world, and it could have probably a million spin-offs.
Right, and a million conflicts in within that.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
you definitely have plenty of plot in addition to the world building.
Yes.
Interesting. Okay. Okay. Cool. Well, it sounds great. I mean, I think it's a
I
great time to
recommend
pick up the
it.
books. Great time to watch the show.
Totally. I mean, if you're
Have a
into,
little book club where you read the books and watch the show. Like that's fun.
yeah,
That would
could it be, yeah, is there anything more fun than that?
No.
Agree. Couldn't agree more.
Awesome.
All right, so tell me about yours.
Okay, so I was gonna read. I was like knee deep in Gary Paulson's memoir, Gone to the Woods, which I am reading for
Yeah.
that next time. I just didn't finish it. So I had read My Last Summer with Cass by Mark Crilly, which is a graphic novel, which I loved. It's this lovely book about best friends. They're both artists. They grew up seeing each other each summer at camp, like their families would go to camp together. And one year they start drawing on a wall, big trouble, they're little. And their parents were really upset. Then the lady who owned the place loved it, and she said she would not like charge them or tear it down or anything. So they both have this inclination for art. And over the years, they kind of grow apart and time passes. And Cass ends up in New York City to pursue art. And Megan is more of a rule follower, and she's less of a risk taker. And she kind of goes on a different path. But this one summer, she gets to go visit Cass in New York City. So Megan starts to on this like it's just for a week. She feels really free. She's exploring art and food and culture. And she and Cass end up creating this amazing piece together. It's rather subversive. It's just in the flesh, and it says like "you don't own me," which is something that she always says to her dad. So it's very freeing because it's like just her taking control of her life and her art. And they're going to put it in this joint gallery opening at the end of the week, which is a big deal. And at first she's elated, but then her parents' plans change, and they say that they're going to come and get her, and they're also going to go to the opening. So at that point, because she had this totally different version of like, oh, they'll never see this piece of art. I'm completely free. I have nothing to worry about. So then she has just kind of panics. And she tries to get Cass to back out of the art show, and Cass is not having it at all. She's like, you need to learn to take risks. And they're both kind of trying to change each other, Cass more than Megan. And then basically what ends up happening is Megan goes and takes a razor blade to the painting and burns it. So that really affects Cass, because this was her one opportunity to do this big joint thing at the studio. And they don't talk to each other. They just have a falling out. But years later, when Megan's getting ready to go somewhere, I think it's like later on after, it's still in college, she is like about to board a plane, but then she hears that there's this girl, Cass, who's doing this solo opening at this gallery. And they had made this promise that they would be at each other's gallery openings. And so without even talking to her, she goes and takes a big risk there, because she doesn't know if Cass is gonna accept that she's there. And she doesn't get into the show, but she does get to she waits for her outside, and they have time to talk, and then they repair their friendship. It was really sweet, but it wasn't like too easy or too it just wasn't, it was realistic, I think, in how they resolved it, as opposed to being like over saccharine or anything like that.
Oh, that's good.
Oh, it was really good. I thought it was so realistic.
Oh, that sounds really nice, and just like totally different from what I read.
Totally.
So what is, I mean, besides being wonderful and realistic, what are some things you liked about it?
All right. So it takes place between high school and college, and it had that really bubbly, risk-taking freedom discovery slash vibes that come with that age. Felt very realistic. There's that moment, where she's visiting Cass, and I kind of mentioned she felt really free. There's just like this spread in the book where she's dancing, and it very much had this wonderful free vibe. I thought it was really very well illustrated. I also loved the art school focus. It felt very familiar to the good old Emerson days, straight down to the awkwardness that comes with the first nude sketching class, which you don't usually see in a teen book. Like, oh my gosh, they're doing this, but it was totally realistic. It added to the realism of it, I thought. And it was just interesting.
Cool. I've never done a nude drawing class.
Yeah, I didn't have a choice. It was drafting and rendering. So you had to do rendering, and they had different installments, like you do watercolor or so the nude one happened with charcoal, and I was horrible at it because I'm horrible at drawing, but watercolor was my jam. But yeah, it's not as awkward once you get in there, really. Because everybody's just you're looking at form and you're sketching, and it's funny because you're like, okay, you're literally looking at like a foot and you're trying to sketch the shape of a foot and the muscles, so it's really, it just becomes a practice of art. It's not awkward in any way. But when she first goes in, it's like going in. That's the kind of really like, okay, is this gonna be weird? And she has that same vibe, and then it was fine. So, yeah.
Was there anything you didn't like about it?
Not really.
Oh, we always say that.
I know. No, not always. Sometimes I'm annoyed by something, or there's like a little.
No, I know. I had my own things this time,
but this one, like, I was annoyed about at times because it was evoking a lot of emotion from me. Like, it was, oh my God, you're both being really annoying. You can't both be so stubborn. But I thought that actually just was a good sign that the author had created some really realistic dimensional characters.
Someone you felt like you knew.
Yeah, or that they're a little bit complex, so that worked,
Yeah. Is there anything super special about it?
I think age group. I'm seeing more and more books that hit in the between high school and college.
Yeah.
Even ones that will like work their way up from high school, and the characters like age up into college. So I'm wondering if it's going to finally pave the way for a new adult genre. But this one was, heavily focused on that time period, which I really liked, because there's not a whole lot, at least that it's primarily pitched to teens. And I think it fits that pretty well, older teens. And it hits that you're about to go to college, because everybody reads up, Yeah, they really do. And video games too, and shows. It's like everybody really does go up maybe a little bit in age. So I think that works. But I think that's really what's special about it. It's the sweet spot right there between high school and college, and it depicts it really well. So
that's cool.
It was well captured.
It's interesting, because I do feel like a lot of the new books that are coming out for YA really are intended for either much older teens, so people going to college, or adults who read YA.
Yeah.
That's like today when I was talking to that 12-year-old kid, I was like, oh geez, like this is actually kind of tough, because
you're young for a lot of the content there.
Yeah, whereas I feel like when I was 12, the YA really was like Anne of Green Gables,
yeah, that's true,
stuff like that. And so
that's
it's kind of
true. And I do think there's a problem with the market, though, in that case. Like, I think that the YA market does play to adults who read YA, and I don't know if that's good.
Right. So like if they had like their own little emerging adult,
exactly, that would make more sense to me. And maybe it's now it's gonna emerge finally. That would be great. I think
it'll be interesting to see. I feel like that's the group that we're always trying to get into the library,
right.
So
yeah, but I get it too, because it's like teens do want to read up, like they're comfortable reading in the adult section. They want to go that way. which I get. Like
I mean, that's true. I mean, what like fifth grader isn't, well, nobody's reading it anymore, but like I feel like I remember, being in fifth or sixth grade and everyone's reading like Sweet Valley High.
right,
So
right, exactly. Yeah, no, that's old. That's old school, Sweet
yeah,
Valley.
people don't read that anymore. But it was specifically about high school.
Exactly. So I don't know. It's interesting. It'll be interesting to see what the market does.
Hmm,
Now, do you have any book buzz this time?
I don't.
That's
My book,
okay.
my book
No,
buzz is I started watching Shadow and
I
Bone
know. And it is available on Netflix.
on Netflix. Watch it. Talk to me about it. I'd love to.
Okay, I have some, but it's kind of dated now because we wrote this like back a couple.
Oh
We had
yeah.
like a long pause in between the last episode and this one, but Jacqueline Woodson, in case you didn't hear, was recently named the Kennedy Center Education Artist in Residence. So that's really cool. And there's so many neat things she's going to do. It says an acclaimed author of books for children and adolescents and adults. Her residency will include both on and offstage programming across genres, forms, and spaces, and it will be seen both locally and nationally.
Oh, that's cool.
And a few of her works will also be adapted for the stage. So it sounds like it has this like performative,
That's very cool.
aspect to it, which is really cool.
Well, I read Before the Ever After, which is by her
Yeah.
last week, whatever, our
Whatever,
previous
last month.
episode.
Yeah.
And like boy, oh boy, it is just
Wouldn't you
so
love to hear that
incredibly
out loud? Did you listen to the audio? No, you didn't.
I
You
didn't.
read
I read it and I would love to listen to the audio. And I believe it is one of the contenders for the Great Stone Face this year.
Okay, gotcha. Awesome. A quick note that Becky Albertalli's The Upside of Unrequited is to be adapted for film. So that was interesting. And then I saw this fun little book deal go through the children's bookshelf by it's Kendare Blake. She did the Three Dark Crowns series. Really fun stuff. She sold to Disney Hyperion a new YA trilogy set in the Buffy the Vampire Slayer universe. It says, in a world with many slayers, in a new Sunnydale rebuilt on top of the old Sunnydale, one girl and a werewolf and a demon must stop the Hellmouth from reopening and defeat forces of evil bent on destroying everything and everyone she loves, including her Aunt Buffy. The first book is set for winter 2022. So I don't know. It's like a spinoff.
Yep.
And it could be fun.
People, I think, like the youngsters are into Buffy.
Are they? Because I'm finding no one takes our Buffy graphic novels out.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I feel like they like it because it's old and I think
okay, it's like vintage now.
Yes.
And are they liking the show or books?
Oh, I think it's the show.
Okay, all right. So that's interesting. I mean, I think she has a good enough base that people will read it anyway, and hopefully there will be interest.
We'll probably rekindle something.
For sure. I think that's what we're gearing up for here. So that
I mean, if someone was like, hey, I'm going to go ahead and write some books set in the Charmed universe, you know I'd be reading those books.
Exactly. Yeah, I think it definitely it'll have a good surge. So, all right, that's a wrap on today's podcast. Wherever you're listening, thanks so much for joining us. And don't forget to drop us a line at any time by emailing us at teentitletalk@gmail.com.
Thanks for joining us for Teen Title Talk. This podcast is brought to you by the Derry Public Library and Derry-CAM, Derry Community Access Media, empowering independent voices. Wherever you're listening, if you enjoyed the podcast, please rate it and review it and stay safe and wear your mask.
Yes. And we'll see you another time.
Yes. Bye.
Bye.